When you look at India today, it's almost like you're looking at two different countries living side by side. It's a story filled with these incredible contrasts of some massive challenges and, as we're about to see, some really powerful solutions for progress.
All right, just look at this. On one side, you have the hands of someone who's clearly worked hard their whole life. On the other, a hand just full of cash. So what story are these two pictures from the same exact country really telling us about wealth and hardship?
And here's another way to see that exact same divide. You've got a crumbling, potholed rural road right next to a slick, modern highway. I mean, it's pretty clear, right? One road is a pathway to opportunity, and the other, well, that's a daily struggle.
And it's the same story when you look at where people live. A simple, rundown rural house, and then a luxurious suburban home. So you have to ask, why? Why does this huge gap exist? And look, this isn't just a few cherry-picked photos. This is the real day-to-day life for hundreds of millions of people.
So those images, they really hit you, right? But the reality behind them isn't just about feelings. It's rooted in some really hard data. This isn't just a feeling or a few stories. It's a massive statistical divide that defines one of the nation's biggest challenges.
And when you look at the numbers, they're pretty stark. India is at its heart a land of villages, and in those villages, a full third of the population is living in extreme poverty. But here's the real kicker. Even though a huge chunk of the population, like 60%, works in farming, the actual economic contribution from that whole sector is going down. I mean, that's a huge disconnect.
Okay, get ready for this number. Let it really sink in. Almost 70%. That's the percentage of India's population that lives in villages. So let's be super clear, when we say rural India, we're not talking about some small, forgotten corner of the country. We're talking about the majority of India.
So how did we get here? Well, a big part of it goes back to the years after independence. Development plans were heavily focused on the cities. And what happened? Well, all that focus meant that rural industries started to kind of wither on the vine, which pushed more and more people to leave their villages for the cities, just searching for work. And that just made the gap even wider.
Okay, so if we're serious about bridging this gap, we've got to first figure out what we're even aiming for. What does development actually mean here? Because development, it's a way bigger idea than just pouring concrete and building stuff.
And what's so cool about this definition here is just how complete it is. Rural development isn't just about money or GDP. It's about a total improvement in people's lives. We're talking about the whole shebang. Housing, schools, health, transport, jobs, the works. And the key is doing it by using the resources that are already there.
All right, so we get the problem. We've got our goal defined. Now for the big question. How do we actually make it happen? Well, the sources we looked at point to this really powerful two-part strategy for empowering communities right from the ground up.
First up, decentralization. The idea is so simple, but it's totally revolutionary. You stop making all the decisions from the top down. Instead, you put the power and the responsibility right into the hands of the people who actually live there.
And in India, the system designed to do exactly that is called the Panchayat Raj. Think of it like a pyramid. At the very bottom, right at the village level, you have the Grama Panchayat. Then you move up to the block level, the Taluk, and finally, you get to the district level, the Zilla. The whole point is to keep the government as local as possible.
And this isn't just some casual, informal thing. This was actually written into the Indian Constitution back in 1993. That's huge. It means self-governance isn't just a nice idea, it's a constitutional right.
So what's their job? Well, it's pretty much to go after all those problems we saw in the beginning. They're the ones on the ground responsible for stuff like decent roads, clean drinking water, schools, housing programs, all of it. They're on the front lines of fighting poverty right where it lives.
But, changing the system is only half the story. The second part of this blueprint, and it's just as crucial, is empowering the people themselves. And when it comes to rural development, the sources are crystal clear. The role of women isn't just important, it's absolutely decisive.
I mean, this quote really says it all. It doesn't say their role is helpful or important. It says it's decisive. That's a powerful word. It basically means that without women being deeply involved, real development just isn't going to happen.
And one of the most amazing ways this is happening on the ground is through what are called women's self-help groups. These groups are, frankly, incredible engines for change. On one hand, they help women get on their feet financially with things like small loans and savings plans. But their impact goes way beyond money. They're also taking on huge social issues, things like alcoholism, the dowry system, even child marriage.
And this empowerment isn't just social or economic. It translates directly into real political power. Just look at the state of Karnataka. Get this, over half of all the elected members in that local panchayat system are women. That's not just a statistic. That's giving them a real voice, a direct seat at the table to make decisions for their own communities.
The sources we looked at have this really beautiful way of summing it all up. Both men and women share this responsibility. They're like the two wheels of a chariot. And think about it. For a chariot to move forward, to make any progress at all, you need both wheels to be strong, balanced, and turning together. If one wheel is weak or stuck, the whole thing just goes in circles.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. It's not enough to just have two wheels on the chariot. The real trick is making sure they're aligned. So how does a nation, or really any community, make sure that both of those wheels are moving forward together in sync? It's a question that gets right to the heart of what real, lasting development is all about.